All right, welcome to video number 4, starting on conduct to and from school and transportation eligibility. So basically, what this says is you've got to live within our district to be offered transportation. And what you need to remember is, for the vast majority of you, transportation is not your right. Transportation is something that it's a privilege that the school offers you. Um, just with everything else in life, if you're not treating and respecting those who offer that privilege for you, then it can be revoked, and you could lose those privileges. There'll be more discussed later on about the conduct on the bus, but some disruption of school. No student shall use violence, force, noise, coercion, threat, intimidation, fear, passive resistance, or any other conduct intentionally causing disruption of the lawful mission, process, or function of the school. Um, no student shall encourage other students to do those activities. And again, you can see consequences. This will be laid out, especially once we get to the high school section. Minimum consequences all the way up to whatever the maximum would be. So in this case, verbal warning up through contacting your parent and legal authorities, which would be the police. As you can also see, a lot of things that students may get into could be subject to legal proceedings. So just because it happens here at school doesn't mean that you cannot be held accountable outside of school in the court of law. So really, I encourage you to really think through um, your decisions before you do such things as fight here at school. No fighting while on school buses or school-sponsored event, regardless of where they take place. So basically, the way that this works is student that starts the fight by initiating physical contact will be punished. Administration, if we can determine who's at fault in starting the fight, then that student will receive a maximum consequence for fighting. And the other student, they may receive a less severe consequence. Of course, if they don't do anything, that it's found that they don't do anything, and there are those cases, then they're not going to receive anything. Uh, if it cannot clearly be determined who started the fight, and a lot of times, what starts the fight is not the physical aspect of it by a student. It's the other student who was verbally saying things, doing things um, that brings this other student to a physical action. So um, just because you don't throw the quote unquote first punch, that does not mean you're not liable for this fight. So, but if we can't determine clearly who started it, then both students were going to be receive the same consequence. You'll be disciplined fairly and equally as determined by the teachers and or principals. School is required by Act 888 to report all violent acts to proper authorities. Sometimes that means Officer Talbert, our SRO. Sometimes that uh, may be our Craighead County um, Sheriff SRO, who is Officer Greg Beavers, who's housed over the middle school, or any other that we would have here. Sometimes that means us notifying the juvenile court and seeing what they would have us to do. So we will be notifying those people when we're supposed to, though. So just no fighting here at school. Direct verbal abuse of school employees. You can't cuss teachers, insult public school teacher employee while performing their normal or regular assigned responsibilities. And here is a little known fact, and it's true though, that if you do this kind of thing, you can be punished by not less than $100, no more than $1,500 fine that you would have to pay for doing this. Threat, physical abuse, or assault of school staff. Again, you can read all this on your own. Weapons and dangerous instruments. These are all the things that will really get you in trouble here. 4.22 definition: firearm means any device designed, made, or adapted to expel a projectile by the action of an explosive or any device readily convertible to that use. Possession means having a weapon on the student's body or in an area under the student's control, such as your locker, your backpack, your athletic locker, your car, your vehicle out in the parking lot. That's where students who drive, really, you have to know what's in your car, because we have situations that come up that you may claim that you know nothing about how it got there, but the pure and simple fact that it's in your possession in your car, you will face whatever consequence come with whatever we find, whether that's drugs, alcohol, tobacco, weapons. So here's the definitions of all the weapons. That's not, again, an all-inclusive list, but that kind of covers a lot. Particularly girls, I know that some of y'all carry pepper spray and mace for protection, and you just have to understand you can't have that on school campus. You can't have it in your purse. We've had tasers found because somebody said that they're afraid when they go to work and they need protection. That's not a valid excuse here. You have to have those things not on our campus. So if that means you have to go home before you go to work, so be it, but they can't be here. And then there are no person shall possess a weapon, display what appears to be a weapon, or threaten to use a weapon before or after school. And as you can see, I'm going to change that just as we were watching. But in a school building, on or about a school, at any school-sponsored activity, en route to and from school, off school grounds, at any school bus stop. General rule on the bus stops, doesn't matter where it's at. If the bus driver can see you, if you are visible, then that means it's our area, and we will discipline for what happens in those areas. If at any time prior to discovering some of these items or questioning, if you accidentally brought something, a knife, anything other than a gun, I mean, it could be a lot of things, but other than a firearm to school, and before we search, before we question, if you just realize, oh, I left something in my car, I went frog gigging last night, and there's a pointy end of the gig out in my car. If you come to Officer Talbert, myself, Mr. Graham, let us know that. We will take that out and return it to you with no questions asked later on. And you would not be in a predicament of having discipline handed down. Except as permitted in this policy, students found to be in possession on the school campus of a firearm shall be recommended for expulsion for a period of 1 year. So that's 365 days without coming to public school, because if you get expelled here, most schools, if not all schools there, and we do this, we're going to follow the discipline procedures of the previous school that you were in. So make sure that you know, please make sure you know what's in your possession. If a weapon is a weapon-like toy, be confiscated, and the student may receive from 3 days up to 10 days out of school suspension, or recommended for expulsion, placed at success. Parents may be contacted. So you can't have a toy gun and act like it's a real gun, because even though it's a toy, it will be treated like it's the real thing.